The note was already sitting there before anyone knew this was a murder. Early in the morning on December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey came down the stairs in her Boulder, Colorado home and found a 3-page ransom note. It said her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét, had been taken. It demanded $118,000. It warned the family not to call police. That alone would have been terrifying, but almost everything about the note felt wrong. It was too long, the amount was oddly specific, and before the day was over, the biggest lie in that note would be impossible to miss. JonBenét Ramsey had never been taken from the house at all. She was still inside. And nearly 30 years later, the case is still one of the most argued over unsolved murders in America. If you know the name JonBenét Ramsey, you probably know the photos first. The pageant dresses, the bright smile, the image that ended up on magazine covers and TV screens everywhere. But before all of that, she was just a little girl in a wealthy family living in Boulder. She lived with her mother Patsy, her father John, and her older brother Burke. By every outward sign, this was a family having a normal Christmas. On December 25th, the Ramseys spent the day celebrating and visiting friends. Later that night, they came home. According to the family, JonBenét was asleep by the time they got back, and she was put to bed. The next morning, the family was supposed to travel. Instead, the house turned into a crime scene. Just before 6 in the morning, Patsy found the note on the staircase and called 911. The panic in those first minutes set the tone for everything that followed. Police came to the home, believing they were responding to a kidnapping. That mattered, because when officers think a child has been taken, they work one kind of scene. When a child has been killed inside the home, that is a very different scene. And in those first crucial hours, the Ramsey house was not locked down the way a murder scene would have been. People moved in and out. Friends and acquaintances came over. Rooms were entered. Things were touched. The home stayed active while police waited for the kidnapper to make contact. But the call never came. No follow-up instructions, no proof of life, nothing. And the note itself kept pulling people back to it. It claimed JonBenét had been taken by a small foreign faction. It demanded exactly $118,000, a number that stood out right away because it was nearly the same as John Ramsey's recent work bonus. That detail has bothered investigators and the public ever since. Was it a clue that the writer knew the family well? Was it meant to point suspicion toward someone close to them? Or was it some strange coincidence layered into an already strange crime? Then there was the note's length. Fast. Functional. This one went on for nearly 3 pages. Investigators later concluded that the paper and pen used to write it came from inside the Ramsey home. In other words, whoever wrote that note did not arrive with a prepared demand in hand. The writer appears to have sat down inside the house and written it there. That turns the whole situation inside out. If this was really a kidnapping, why stay in the home long enough to write a long note using the family's own supplies? Why leave the child behind? Why create a kidnapping story that would collapse the second anyone searched thoroughly enough? As the morning dragged on, those questions got heavier. Eventually, John Ramsey and a family friend searched parts of the home. John went into the basement. The basement was large and cluttered, with storage areas and a small room often described as a wine cellar. That is where he found JonBenét. She was dead. In an instant, the case changed from a kidnapping to a homicide. John carried his daughter upstairs. It was the reaction of a father in shock, but it also damaged the scene even more. By then, the house had already been compromised. Evidence may have been moved, contaminated, or lost during the very hours that mattered most. And that is one of the reasons this case has never loosened its grip on people. From the very start, it felt like the answer might have been there, somewhere in those first hours, and then slipped away. What investigators did know was this: JonBenét had been found inside her own home after a ransom note claimed she had been abducted. That single contradiction made the case explode into competing theories almost immediately. One side looked at the scene and thought the answer had to be inside the house. The note seemed too bizarre, too personal, too staged. The amount matched John's bonus almost exactly. The child had not been removed from the home. And statistically, when a child is killed, the person responsible is often someone known to that child. The other side pointed to evidence that suggested an outsider could have been involved. Most notably, unidentified male DNA was found on JonBenét's clothing. That fact has fueled the intruder theory for years. People who believe someone from outside the family committed the crime point to that DNA as one of the strongest reasons not to close the door on an unknown attacker. And that is where this case becomes so frustrating. Almost every major clue seems to push in two directions at once. The ransom note feels deeply suspicious, but it doesn't by itself prove who wrote it. The body being found inside the house makes the kidnapping story look false from the beginning, but it still doesn't answer who killed her. The DNA suggests the possibility of an intruder, but the meaning of that evidence has been debated for years. The crime scene was so badly compromised early on that later investigators were forced to work backward through uncertainty. That uncertainty spread everywhere. The family came under intense suspicion. For years, public debate circled around John, Patsy, and even Burke Ramsey. But suspicion is not proof. The Ramsey family consistently denied involvement, and no court ever found them responsible for JonBenét's murder. Then, in 2008, the Boulder District Attorney publicly cleared the Ramsey family based on DNA findings. That should have settled something. It didn't. Because even that did not end the debate over what the DNA meant, how much weight it should carry, or whether the case had ever truly been understood in the first place. And this is what keeps the JonBenét Ramsey case alive, decade after decade. It is not a mystery with no clues. It is a mystery with too many clues that refuse to line up. Start with the note. A stranger enters a house, spends enough time inside to write a long ransom message, uses materials found in the home, asks for an amount tied closely to the father's bonus, then leaves the child in the basement. That is hard to square. But then take the DNA. If an outside male's DNA is present on JonBenét's clothing, how should that be read? Is it the clearest sign that someone beyond the family was there? Or is it a clue whose importance has been overstated? Experts and investigators have not all agreed, which means the public has been left in the same place the case itself has stayed for years. Stuck. The early handling of the house only deepened that problem. Once a scene is contaminated, people can argue forever about what should have been preserved, what might have been moved, and what may have disappeared. Every later theory has had to pass through that damaged beginning. And that damaged beginning changed the entire future of the case. Imagine those first hours without the confusion. A tightly secured house, fewer people inside, evidence preserved exactly where it was found, a cleaner timeline. Maybe the truth would look much sharper today. But that is not what happened. Instead, this case became a maze built out of one child's death, one impossible note, one compromised house, and decades of competing explanations. People still return to the same questions. Why was the note written that way? Why ask for $118,000? Why claim a kidnapping if JonBenet was never taken from the home? If an intruder did it, how did that person move through the house, write the note, kill the child, and leave without giving investigators a clear path to follow? If the answer was inside the family, why has it never been proved? Those questions have never gone away. Neither has the image of that morning in Boulder. Christmas decorations still up, a wealthy house in a quiet neighborhood, a frightened 911 call, officers entering what they think is a kidnapping scene, a ransom note on the stairs, hours passing, then a father opening a basement door and finding the child everyone had been looking for still inside the home. That is the moment this case locks into people's minds. Not just that JonBenét Ramsey was killed, but that the story announced itself one way and then turned into something else entirely. A kidnapping that was not a kidnapping, a ransom note that may be one of the most important clues in the case, or one of the most misleading. A crime scene that may have held the answer, then lost part of it almost immediately. No one has ever been convicted of JonBenét Ramsey's murder. The case remains officially unsolved, and that may be the hardest part of all. Not that the crime is old, not that the evidence is debated, but that it still feels, even now, like a case that might be solved if one missing piece could finally be put in the right place. Maybe it is hidden in the note, maybe it is hidden in the DNA, maybe it was in those first chaotic hours and slipped away for good. Whatever the answer is, it has never fully come into view. And so the case stays where it has been since the day after Christmas in 1996, suspended between theories, trapped between clues, and centered on one question that still has no final answer. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? As always, visit us at readtherealstory.com for more unbelievable true stories. Until next time, stay curious.